I would first like to start with asserting that I believe that none of the arguments that follow justify the coercive and violent seizure of personal property. I also don't believe that these inconveniences in any way negate the way in which government acts. These are merely arguments that I don't believe anarchists have adequately addressed yet, at least not in what I have read. Not for me. They are arguments I receive often from statists for which I have no complete answer. The first one is roads. Roads are inherently monopolistic, or at best oligopolistic. From point A to point B there is only so much space that can be utilized for a road that would be cost-effective. For instance, between where I live and where I work there are two possibilities. Either I take the direct route, or I travel up and around, and come down the other way on the same road. There are a couple of options I could choose for those two ways, but regardless of the options of different roads I have to use the road that my work is on, and for a considerable distance, no matter what options I choose. If that road was owned privately I would still have to use it to get to work. The monopoly would be private instead of public. There are many aspects to the arguments over road privatization I do understand. Some of the arguments are even kinda silly and easily refutable. The arguments I don't need explaining are as follows. 1. If roads are privatized, someone could build a road that cuts an entire region in half, separating one portion from another. This is easily refutable if you hold to Lackean property rights or a close variation. Another is that the poor would be denied the "right to travel the roadways" because they couldn't pay the tolls. As with all think of the poor arguments, this one is propaganda and also easy to argue from a charity position. Besides, I believe there are other ways to pay for roads than the one-owner idea as well that would assist with this position. For instance, a business park may pool their resources to build roads in the area because, after all, if you have a business you want people to be able to get to your store. This model would probably provide for roads in most business areas. This doesn't completely explain away the monopoly argument though, especially where freeways are concerned. There is also the argument that transportation is the market, not merely roads. So it's possible that railways and the like would become more popular in an anarchistic society, but I still don't think that this is as complete an argument as I'd like on this subject. The second is defense. I think that this is pretty well covered by most people I have read. There are a few holes that I have not seen adequately explained though. I have read some good blogs concerning the use of militias in an anarchist society and their effectiveness against regular armies. The problems I see though are that, for instance, the use of guerrilla warfare in Iraq has not caused the US to pull out yet. Maybe they don't have complete control of the area, but neither do the insurgents. I don't even see it as a deterrent. Just because we fight back in a way they aren't accustomed to, or are unable to fully repel, doesn't make it an attractive option for me. You may argue that dying is more preferable to slavery, but not for many. In fact, there are many people that would rather look the other way, rather than get involved when a crime is happening right in front of their faces. The third problem I have found is outside forces. Many arguments for anarchy assume no governments at all, in other words, a worldwide anarchy. Anarchy can't start that way in my opinion. If you think it can or would, I would ask you to explain. So how could we deal with a situation where you live in an area that is anarchical, but the rest of the world is still government-run? Do we trade with those from government-run countries? How would this not interrupt a free market? After all, if a company moves into the area whose production is subsidized by the country of origin, then this would crowd out the legitimate businesses run without blood money, or at least it is likely that it could. Lastly is the idea that anarchy could devolve into totalitarianism. I fully understand the inherent absurdity in arguing for a state by saying that anarchy could devolve into a state. The argument I don't think is adequately answered is the idea that anarchy could devolve into a more tyrannical form than was previously endured. In other words, though we exist in slavery now, we do enjoy a large amount of liberty and our masters protect us from outside forces. The risk of freedom is that we could succumb to a more abusive master. Again, these arguments, for me, don't justify government, and in many ways I'm merely playing devil's advocate. These are questions that have stumped me though, and I would really appreciate some kind of response, either video or in the comments section. I also understand that, because anarchy is inherently anti-social planning, questions of how things would work can't be answered, but only how things could work. But if I can't come up with ways they could work, how are we to expect status to change their beliefs on faith? Again, I would really appreciate it if any one of the Anarchists on YouTube could give me an answer to any of these questions, and I look forward to your responses. Thank you.